Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. We are a week into the new year, and it has started off as eventfully as we ended 2019. Today, we'll be joined by a special group of faith leaders to break down the year past and a look ahead at what's to come. And we want you to be part of this show. Share your thoughts in our YouTube chat or on Twitter at AJ Street.
As we enter the fourth year of the Trump presidency, we're continuing to see a rise of hate, not just against Muslims, but a whole range of different groups of people. And as sad as it is to see all this, you've also seen glimmers of hope. You've seen Muslims being much more visible in the media and in business and in politics, and in ways that people can see that we're contributing members of this community. So what I really hope for in 2020 is that we can continue to build bridges between Muslims and people of other faiths and other backgrounds and push back against this tide of hate. White supremacy hurts everybody. It doesn't just hurt Muslims. It doesn't just hurt people of color. It hurts everybody. So I hope that 2020 is the year we can really start to strengthen that push.
2019 was complex. It was a year of protests on the streets of Venezuela, Lebanon, Sudan and Hong Kong. It was the year of people becoming increasingly aware of the climate and climate change. It was a year of hostility, US presidential impeachment and Brexit. And it was a year of deadly mass shootings, but there were glimmers of hope. Scientific discoveries soared, global HIV deaths fell to record lows. Diversity in politics grew, animal conservation efforts yielded results, and New Zealand passed a bill to reach zero carbon emissions by 2050. So do faith leaders help make sense, and how do they help make sense of news cycles and provide comfort? With me to break this all down, Pastor Bob Roberts joins me on the set. He's founder and senior pastor of the Northwood Church and founder of Glocal.net. For over 2 decades, he's been involved in multi-faith peacemaking. It's good to have him here. Rabbi Danya Rutenberg is a rabbi, author and educator. We're pleased to welcome her back to the stream. And in Boston, Sheikh Yasser Fahmy is an instructor of Muslim studies at Harvard Divinity School. Thank you all for being here. Let me start with, it's almost like a desperate plea from online faith leaders. And this is B. Amaria. And we told our online audience that we were talking about this topic and looking back, looking forward with faith leaders. And B. Amaria says, the world is turning away from faith each and every day. It's totally clear just looking at events occurring in our day-to-day lives. Pastor Bob, that sounds desperate and miserable. And what can we do? The world is a hot mess.
So I would say the most important thing is when you think, well, where is God in all of this? And why am I facing what I'm facing? To turn away and say he's not there is hopelessness, sheer hopelessness. What's left if he's not there? And so I think our faith can actually help us make meaning. Instead of looking at it in terms of where is God because it happens, the question is, what is God doing in the midst of this? And how can I be a servant of peace? How can I be a healer in what I see, the brokenness that's there? I think that's critical.
But you are that voice, you are that healer, so it's easier for you to say that because you have a calling. But for regular people who are just following the news, what do they do?
The regular people are the most important people. Here's why. This is where change happens. A lot of bureaucrats, a lot of politicians, government leaders, even faith leaders, they lock themselves up into conferences and define what's wrong with the world and give talks and speeches and write books, but it never gets to the grassroots. I think the most important thing an everyday person can do is who's hurting around me and how am I going to bring healing? And if they're different from you, all the better. They don't have to be like you.
I really agree with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I mean, I think that's true, that really we all have one job on this planet, and certainly right now is to take care of one another and to take care of the planet as well. I think to build on what the nice Pastor Bob was saying is that we need to also be cultivating a spiritual practice in order to give us sustenance, to help us through this incredibly painful time. That this is it's not even a marathon, right? It's a relay race. We each need to be showing up and helping and having a spiritual practice that can nourish us and get to the roots of where we are and to fill us up and to help bring us the wisdom that we need in order to get the moral clarity that we need right now. Is essential, because if we're just trying to come from ourselves without support, we're going to burn out, and this is going to be a long fight.
I couldn't agree more, and I would like to highlight the fact that so often, when as the regular person that you're referring to, and I think we're all regular people
Yeah.
at that, Matt, that we are beings that are very complex in nature. We have these minds, we have hearts, we have souls, we have bodies, and so often, especially in our particular day and age, because of how plugged in we are, we're constantly processing very, very big, heavy ideas that are global, that are very important, that we are aware of, but so often it shines over the rest of who we are. You know, the fact that every single day, as a human being, I need social nourishment, I need emotional nourishment, I need spiritual nourishment. I need to figure out and process, who I am and where I'm going, and what kind of good I'm offering that brings healing to myself and to others. And am I living a meaningful existence? And this is what our faith traditions, I think, offer. What it does is it brings nuance, and it problematizes the world as it should be. And it puts things into scope and perspective. The political question is one question. It's an important one, but it's one question of a myriad of realities that as human beings we're supposed to be considering every single day.
So, guess we promised our audience that as they were following on YouTube that they could ask you questions. So here we have one from Shahed. He's currently on YouTube. Are you afraid that if tensions continue to rise, that it will be harder to build bridges among religious divides? How do you keep the faith? Pastor Bob, I know interfaith and working with other people and other faiths is a big deal for you. How do you continue to do it when there's anti-Semitism, there's Islamophobia, just within the United States? It surrounds us on a daily basis.
So I hate to say it, but all the hate that's taking place, that's where peace grows. That's where love grows. It goes, because there are people that see what's going on and they're bothered. They want something to change. And so, as bad as it is, no,
Give
I'm
us
not
an example.
hopeless.
Give us an example where peace grows.
Give you one simple example of a church and synagogue in a mosque that I was working with in Phoenix, Arizona. A bunch of white separatists circled the church so that the Muslim worshipers could not go in. And the evangelical church, who had gotten to know the Muslims and the pastor who became friends, they circled that church 4 deep and opened a way where the Muslims could come in and worship. And so it makes all the difference in the world. But the key to change, I know this may sound crazy, and I know people will disagree with this. I used to think it was more education and information. It's not. It's relationship. When you get to know somebody, your whole idea changes. We do these pastor imam retreats, and most Muslims are petrified of evangelicals, and evangelicals are afraid of Muslims. But when they get together...
Why would that be the case?
Well, because American evangelicals think Muslims want to come and take over America and bring Sharia. Muslims are afraid they want to convert me. So are Jews. I'm sorry, we can't help it. But the reality is, in the midst of all of that, what we've learned is when we get to know one another, our minds change. And I deal with very prominent pastors who didn't even want their names that were going to this retreat. And they leave and they go, Bob, what I'm hearing about Muslims, it's all wrong. And it is, but what's happening? It's not the information, it's the relationship. So they get to know one another.
I couldn't agree more. And I really think what the pastor's touching upon is such a critical point. We, in the light of all of this pain that's happening, I've seen so many examples of beautiful unity. When the Jewish tombstones were desecrated and you had Nazi symbols drawn on them, Muslims really stood up. You had Celebrate Mercy, Brother Tariq al-Masidi, who stood up, and he did a beautiful campaign to raise funds that went well over the amount that was required, and it was preserved, unfortunately, for more events that occurred after that. But when the Tree of Life synagogue shooting happened, we gathered together in the Boston Commons. The governor was there, the entire interfaith community, senators, congresspeople, and we spoke about the need to rise above this vile, putrid hatred that seems to be, unfortunately, fomenting in so many corners. But what we came to realize, and what we always come to realize, is that there is always more good than there is evil. No matter how much the evil is highlighted, no matter how much it's promoted, no matter how high the voices or loud the voices are that may propose that, the goodness and the love and the mercy and the compassion that exists far outweighs whatever evil exists. And I think that's a reality that we, as faith people in the faith tradition in the interfaith space, realize and see every single day.
Rabbi Daniel, go ahead.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think both it's true that in this time of fear, so many communities have seen how we need to come together, and both of you have brought great examples. I know, synagogues that started to show up. One synagogue in particular started to show up every Friday morning after the 2016 election with signs that say, Jews love our Muslim neighbors, and to build this really rich and wonderful relationship with this mosque next door. And then, of course, after Pittsburgh happened, they were the first people to be waiting outside the front door of the synagogue on Friday night as people were coming in and afraid. And the imam is a CBST, it's a gay and lesbian synagogue, and the imam wound up speaking at New York Pride on behalf of the Jewish community. And these beautiful relationships are developed that are the seeds of solidarity, right? That we can't do this unless we are together. And I think white supremacists and the people who are holding power and trying to keep power want us to be separate, and they want us to be afraid, and they want us to distrust one another. And the choice every single day to show up and to say, I'm here for you, maybe you will be here for me. Let's hold hands, and even if there are sometimes very real differences that we may need to work through, or say, well, we'll be together here and we'll negotiate somewhere else, but that we have to be together. The stakes are too high.
Let's talk about, Rabbi Daniel, let's talk about Rabbi Daniel, let's talk about the stakes. And I'm going to do that via a post that you shared on your Twitter feed. So you start here with your subtweet. It's not even coded anti-Semitism. It's not a dog whistle. He's saying this out loud. We're talking about President Trump to a room full of Jews who laugh. You can work out the acronym for yourself. Meanwhile, Rabbi Dania, I'm shocked. But now let me play this, because this is the point. Have a listen to this, everybody.
A lot of you are in the real estate business because I know you very well. You're brutal killers, not nice people at all, but you have to vote for them. You have no choice. You're not going to vote for Pocahontas, I can tell you that. You're not going to vote for the wealth tax. Yeah, let's take 100% of your wealth away. No, even if you don't like me, some of you don't. Some of you I don't like at all, actually.
And you're going to be my biggest supporters because what President Trump is talking about is he's talking to a room full of Jewish people. I'm just going to silence it here. He's talking about presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren. He's called her Pocahontas. You know why. And then there are people in the room who are also Jewish who are laughing at the stereotypes that the president is sharing with that audience. This is just one example of the kind of anti-Semitism that is going around in the United States. We also have Islamophobia as well. In 2020, 2019, what is going on with us? Why are we not more sophisticated? Why are we not more able to appreciate other people's faith? Rabbi Daniel, you start.
So anti-Semitism, I part of me wants to just pause and unpack the Pocahontas and the many layers of offense that are in that story for Native Americans, but I'll stay in my lane here. Anti-Semitism is interesting. It's been fascinating to see it play out in the last few years according to the same script that worked in medieval Europe. Like the same script has worked for over 1,000 years, which we have a story in which the Jews are pegged as being some sort of, elite. The globalists are loyal to each other. They're not loyal to us. They're controlling things nefariously behind the scenes. I mean, I can go through all of the roots of this, but the bottom line is that anti-Semitism is used to say, blame the Jews, don't blame me. Right? People in power use anti-Semitism to scapegoat Jews so that other people are angry at Jews and not at the people who are actually holding power. And it's been fascinating to watch it be deployed in this way. And it's being used over and against Islamophobia, right? People are trying to pit Jews and Muslims as enemies. It's being used as a tool of white supremacy to pit Jews and African Americans against each other, and being used as a tool of racism. There are all of these different ways that white supremacists are using it as a wedge issue to try to break apart people that need to be together, because they know that when we stand together, then we'll win.
I think what the rabbi is saying is on point. I mean, what we're seeing today with the rise of fascism. I mean, fascism, unfortunately, is popping up all across the world. You see what's happening in India. You see what's happening in China. You see what's happening specifically to the Uyghur Muslims and how they're being persecuted, gathered into concentration camps. You see what's happening to the Rohingya in Burma and across the world. You see what's happening, continues to happen in Palestine, Israel, and you see all of these realities playing out. And unfortunately, a common thread and a common narrative is you see the particularities of absolutism, nationalistic narratives, where for me to exist, others have to be eliminated. And that's a disastrous, toxic orientation. Unfortunately, that does not represent the essence of the human condition. What unites us, what brings us together as human beings is far more beautiful and profound. And for purposes of political power, expediency, and influence, people prey on the fears of people, fears of individuals who may not know. I mean, as Pastor Robert's saying, just relationships, getting to know someone is the greatest antidote to fear and hatred, because you realize that there is an inherent beauty that unites us as a human being. So we as individuals, as faith leaders, as people who care, who just have a heart, and that goes for every single person, have to realize that we have a huge responsibility to play to turn down this noise by turning on our hearts and souls, instead of being pummeled by ideas, thoughts, and narratives in contexts of fear and hatred, to realize, wait, hold on, if I just turn off the noise, I realize everything's actually pretty beautiful, and the people around me are people that I can love and care for and embrace them with an open arm.
I feel like I've gone to synagogue, temple, all the houses of worship, all in one time in 24 minutes. Thank you so much, Sheikh Yasser. Pastor Bob, I cannot have a conversation with you as an evangelical and not mention the political position some Christians appear to be in the United States right now, and people questioning perhaps their judgment or supporting the way that perhaps some of their concerns are being represented by the current administration. Where do you fall on that?
So that's a scary question. We're afraid of that question. Can I just be honest with you? Because there are some policies that we would say to President Trump we would agree with, religious freedom and our views on abortion and things like that. But let me be the first to say, I cringe at his tweets, and I don't justify in any way, shape, or form his morality or his character. And I don't have a problem, frankly, with President Trump sometimes as much as I have a problem with other pastors and evangelicals. Because when we publicly endorse bad behavior, or we say it doesn't matter, then that goes against the very message of Jesus Christ and the kingdom of God.
Can I show something that you shared on your Twitter feed, which really speaks to this? Have a look, everybody, here. A Muslim friend sent me this and asked me to explain it. I couldn't, it broke my heart. This is not Jesus. Preachers of hate come in all kinds of religions. I'm just going to play this. Have a listen, everybody.
If some of those people in that
Give me a second. There we go, a little buffering
what
there.
I've got in my back pocket right now. Is it illegal to pull it out? I don't know. Is that... Anyway. I've always thought if more good people had concealed carry permits, then we could end those Muslims before they go off there and kill them.
What is going on here? These are, I want to do air quotes for Christians here. They're listening to a sermon. The preacher there has a gun in his back pocket. Why are we even discussing something like that?
We shouldn't.
Yeah.
His own tribe ought to call him out and say that does not represent Christianity. Here's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Tribalism. tribalism.
Right.
And here's what we want to do. We want to change the other tribe. We're afraid of the Muslims, so we say horrible things. Did you know that was me? Did you know the people with the most negative view of Muslims in the world are evangelicals? When I heard that, it broke my heart. I'm one of those guys, I got converted. I went from hating Muslims to loving Muslims. Do I agree with them? No, I'd like to baptize every one of them. But at the end of the day, they have the right.
This is why Sheikh Yasser is on Skype right now.
They have the right to believe they have the right to believe what they want to believe.
Right.
And tribalism is killing us. Here's my response. I can't change what's wrong with Muslims. I can't change what's wrong with Jews. Guess what? There's only one tribe I can speak to. That's my tribe. That's what I do because it's a rejection of Christianity and of my faith to say that it's okay to hate Muslims or anyone. Jesus said, love your enemies, not just your neighbors, your enemies. He takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, can I just say to this point, and I think this is actually getting into the thick of it a little bit later in the show, but you know, I love the fact that we can celebrate our differences and appreciate that we are not the same on some core theological points. Obviously, a Muslim is not a Christian, and a Christian is not a Muslim, and that goes the same for Jews. But the fact is, and I remember very distinctly, I was sitting in an interfaith gathering that was put on by the Catholic Church, and I was seated next to an evangelical leader. He was visibly uncomfortable with me sitting next to him. And I tried my best to kind of speak to him, to just knock that shell off. And I told him, hey, listen, I know you probably don't like me. You're probably terrified of me. You think I'm going to, I have something hidden underneath my cloak. But I want to tell you that, you know, you and I, we actually have things that unite us that are far more significant than whatever programming has happened in your mind around the Muslim community. Because I know with certainty, and as someone who went to, I went to a Catholic school growing up. I'm a Jesuit Muslim, if you will. I went to Jesuit Catholic school. I'm a pure Muslim. But the fact is that I know exactly what Jesus says about others, and it has nothing to do with that narrative. And I challenged him. I said, listen, am I the first Muslim that you actually sat next to? He said, you are the first Muslim I've ever spoken to in my life. This is an evangelical leader. And just breaking down the walls, I said, I have one request of you. Have lunch with me. Nothing else. Just have lunch with me. And he agreed. And that started a very rich conversation. We disagree on things vehemently. But what unites us and what can connect us and the concerns that we have about social well-being, about morality, about religion in the public sphere, these are big questions that Muslims and Jews and Christians are trying to answer every single day.
Rabbi, I know you're trying to get in. I also want to share this with you because we're in the last minute and a half, so I'm going to get you all to do this at the same time. So Rim Sarah is actually following on YouTube right now, and she wants to ask all of you, what words of wisdom would you give to the next generation of peace and interfaith activists in the next decade? I feel that you've been doing that in this show, but focus and concentrate on that particular idea about the next generation of peace and interfaith leaders. Rabbi, you start. Go ahead.
Okay, so first I want to say to religious leaders, it's really important for us to sit down and have lunch and connect and get to know the fact that every human being is an actual human being. And we need to interrogate the white supremacy and the anti-Semitism and all of the various biases in our own text.
Okay, I hate to hurry you, but we're in 1 minute, and I want to get some gems for everybody. In a sentence, Rabbi, finish off.
And for everybody else, just show up. Do the work. You can do more than you think you can. Just show up and do the work that is on your plate. Show up, do the work. Sheikh Yasser. Let's keep going.
Yeah, Sheikh Yasser, your advice for the next generation of interfaith activists, what would it be? In a sentence, go ahead.
Continue to search for meaning. Do good every single day. Connect with real human beings. Get off your phones and your computers. Talk to people. Spend time. And actually spread love and joy.
All right. Pastor Bob, you've got a sentence. Can you make it?
Hug a Muslim, hug a Jew, hug a Christian.
Of course he can make it. Thank you, Pastor Bob. Thank you, Rabbi Danya. Thank you, Sheikh Yasser. And thank you for following us online. I will see you next time. Take care.